Okay, Eddie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to I think this is the 8th edition, and we're going through my papers on Paul LaViolette. And last week we ended talking about the MEG and the SEG, which are electrical generators that use over unity. So I think this week we're going to try and get them all finished, so all the papers are done. So I'm going to let Brendan go ahead and start reading.
Okay, so I'll just continue reading now. So MEG and SEG. So SEG is cell effect generator. MEG, Eddie, what's MEG?
Magnetic effect generator, I think.
So
I
magnetic
might
effect generator
That
and
might
the
be
solar
wrong.
effect generator. Clockwise rotation of the rollers causes a current to flow radially out
Outward from the
outward from the magnetic effect generator's plate to its rollers are due to
uh
Faraday
due to
Faraday
Faraday
disk
disk dynamo effect.
dynamo effect. As a result of the ball
Ball
bearing
bearing
ball bearing
motor
motor
effect.
motor effect, this current then creates a torque that induces the rollers to continue their clockwise motion. The rotating rollers create resonant, externally low frequency (ELF) oscillations that pulse conjugate to form an extended
Phase
soliton
con
wave pattern.
phase conjugate to form a
Form an extended soliton wave pattern. Energy
entrapped or entrained.
entrained from this soliton helps to propel the rollers.
So this is really important. So they're creating a resonant, extremely low frequency or ELF oscillations that that phase conjunct to form an extended soliton wave pattern. I talked about how it's a radial soliton wave pattern. So we can carry on. Thanks, Brendan.
As one proceeds outward through this soliton wave pattern, moving radially outward from the center of the magnetic effect generator, one encounters progressively higher harmonic modes, whole number multiples of the roller magnet's fundamental frequency, FO. Since 23 is a prime number, lower frequency subharmonic modes, such as FO over 2 and FO over 3, situated at radii smaller than the roller ring radius, would not form. The roller ring would itself be the lowest frequency resonance in this stationary cylindrical wave pattern.
So that's important. This stationary cylindrical wave pattern. So they're talking about the MEG, or sorry, the SEG here, the serial generator.
Okay, so I go on.
Yep.
The magnetic effect generators, the MEGs, that's the magnetic effect generator. AC, electric and magnetic field oscillation is induced in a non-linear medium, that is the ferromagnetic material making up the stator and roller magnets, has a non-linear electric and magnetic
Properties.
In addition, the high voltage
Discharge.
this discharge that surrounds the stator plate and roller ring when the MEG is operating at high
RPM.
would generate nitric oxide.
I'll just stop you there for a quick second because that's exactly the same thing that we talked about that Tesla was doing with his tower at Wardenclyffe.
Which also has nonlinear electric properties.
Dielectric properties.
Dielectric properties, sorry.
Yep.
The nonlinear dielectric properties of such plasmas make good phase conjugation media. The phase conjugating characteristics of the plasma surrounding the dome of Tesla's magnifying transmitter could explain how the tower was able to beam radio frequency energy to distant locations without appreciable attenuation.
Yep.
One interesting characteristic of a phase conjugate resonator is its ability to decrease entropy. The emitted phase conjugate waves precisely retrace the path of the scattered ordinary waves, causing the entropy of the wave system to decrease as the wave regains its original ordered state. As a result, energy that normally would be lost through scattering to the environment becomes bottled up in the soliton wave pattern.
Very important right there. Yeah.
Harmonics existing in the ambient molecular movement, FO, 2FO, 3FO, 4FO, 5FO, and so on, up to the ninth harmonic. The universe is permeated by energy spanning a wide range of frequencies, including frequencies in the ELF range. Also, there is the well-known ELF meaning.
Yeah. Also, there is the well-known ionosphere.
Also, there is the well-known ionospheric Schumann resonance, which is excited at approximately 8 Hertz by solar particle bombardment of the ionosphere. Higher harmonics of this resonance might
match
some of the soliton harmonics. The MEG may also be cohering energy from the omnipresent zero-point energy background that extends throughout space. The SubQuantum Kinetics zero-point energy spectrum differs from that of conventional physics in that it spans all frequencies, including ELF. ELF means what?
Extremely low frequency.
ELF frequencies. SubQuantum Kinetics allows energy to be excited from the
extracted
from the fluctuating ether at frequencies in this ELF range and even lower. Violation of the second law of thermodynamics is the expected norm whenever phase conjugate resonance is occurring. The Searle disk's oscillating field is analogous to the non-reversing AC field that Brown was exciting across the dielectrics of his AC electrokinetic apparatus.
Analysis
assumed that gravitational thrust was being produced as a result of the creation of a virtual charge gradient x-axis
across virtual charge gradient across
the capacitor dielectric. The resulting oscillating gravity field gradient would induce a gravitational thrust in the negative to positive electric pole direction. The MEG or cell disk would generate a gravity flow in its generator's interior, where up
would be oriented towards
would be oriented towards the generator's periphery, and down will be oriented towards its center. According to SubQuantum Kinetics, the Earth is a net consumer of geons. Hence, it forms a radial concentration gradient in the G ether that extends out into space, with geon concentration progressively rising with increasing distance from the surface of the Earth. See the book SubQuantum Kinetics for an explanation of how etheron gradients produces movement.
Induced movement. Yeah. And for those that don't know, Brandon is working on the 6th edition of SubQuantum Kinetics book right now that will be published at some point, maybe this year.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just working on about a third way through the index.
Yeah. And the rest of the book is already done. Yeah. Fantastic.
Another prediction, Brandon. Thanks. Another prediction coming out of SubQuantum Kinetics concerns the phenomena of dematerialization. It predicts that if a spacecraft's gravity potential was to rise very high, the craft would become invisible, or in some cases could dematerialize altogether.
I'll just stop you there for a quick second. I just want to say something. Nikola Tesla did an experiment that his assistant saved his life essentially by shutting off the power. But the B2 operates at about 2 million volts. If you go past that to the point of about 3.5 million volts, this exact thing occurs, and Tesla found himself actually out of time, he said, and like in a different reality essentially. And like I said, had his assistant not shut off the power, it would have killed him for sure. So 3.5 million volts is kind of the magic number. I'll let you carry on.
In such a case, an increase in gravity potential above a certain threshold, GC, would
dictate
subcritical conditions in the ether reaction system, which in the extreme would cause energy waves and matter to ultimately dissipate. Compared with beam propulsion technology, these SEG and MEC appear to offer a simpler approach to gravitational levitation. However, it may not be as desirable from a weaponry standpoint, in that a craft using such levitation would not be able to abruptly change its direction of flight. The SEG and MEC has the benefit of offering a virtually limitless energy source that could ultimately eliminate global warming.
Big statement there, right? But it's absolutely true.
According to SubQuantum Kinetics, these oscillating electric fields would be accompanied by oscillating gravity potential fields.
Yeah.
What's that word?
Whose
field gradients would also be maximal at the loop disk periphery. An object in the vicinity of this disk would no longer feel the full downward pull of Earth's gravity, being effectively screened from this field by the disrupting effect of this AC resonator. In a gravity shield created by radio frequency excitation of the Demetrian antenna, on the other hand, the direction of this radial geon flux would reverse 100 million times per second.
Wow.
Consequently, the horizontal gravity field component would have a net zero value. Titanium lead zirconate
Yeah.
R equals 1,750.
That's K. That's K.
K equals 1,750. Gravity potential gradients are understood to be concentration gradients created in an ether that accompanies an Euclidean space. Such reactions that are continually regenerating the fields of the propelled objects constitute subatomic particles. Unbalanced electrostatic forces can propel an asymmetrical capacitor if it is properly designed.
Yep.
A 50 kilogram thruster measuring 38.5 centimeters high, 8.3 centimeters wide, and 33 centimeters long, using a 4000 K dielectric and charged to 100 kilovolts, is computed to develop a phenomenally high thrust of 0.68 tons, a force that measures almost 14 times the capacitor's normal weight. 30 of these thrusters would be capable of lifting a 2G ton,
20 ton.
20-ton vehicle. Forward movement could be obtained. What's that word? Could be obtained from some
vectoring the direction.
Vectoring the direction of these thrusters. Since barium titanate has a volume resistance of about 101.
Or 1011.
1011, sorry. Ohm meters. A capacitor of this size would have a total resistance of about 110 ohm meters.
1010 ohms.
1010 ohm meters. This would amount to a current leakage of 10 microamps, or a power dissipation of 1 watt. 30 thrusters could be powered with a 100-watt power supply, a propulsion device yielding 20 metric tons of force for a power thrust dissipation of 100 watts. That's a light bulb, the same power as a light bulb.
Exactly.
Would have a thrust to power ratio of 2 million newtons per kilowatt, of about 130,000 times that of jet engine.
It's pretty efficient. 130,000 times that of a jet engine. That shows the efficiency of this. And 100 watts, you're right. 100-watt power supply is the size of a small stereo amplifier.
Or a light bulb. Light bulb is 40 or 60 or 100.
Yeah, watts. But the actual power, the power supply they're talking about that can propel this 20-ton craft, which is fairly large, is the size of a small stereo amplifier. So put that into perspective, because that's not very big, and that's not very much power either, right? Very
So it's
cool.
creating energy. It's creating energy from a small amount of energy. It
Yeah,
may need.
yeah.
It may need. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Brennan.
It
Yeah.
may need to be repeatedly charged and discharged to create a continuing thrust effect. In his patent, La Forge notes that his patent
Notes that in
in
addition
his
to
patent,
its
LaForge notes that in addition to its use for air transport, his thruster could be used for power generation by mounting a number of these thrusters around the circumference of an axis and connecting the axis to a generator. 4 thrusters producing 680 kilograms force and each mounted at the end of a rotor arm extending 2 feet out from the axis would collectively generate 12,000 foot-pounds of torque, spinning at 5,250 RPM rotations per minute.
yeah,
This electrostatic motor would be generating 12,000 horsepower or of
8.7 meg
87 megawatts of power. The thrusters would require only 40 kilowatts of power if the capacitors were charged and discharged once per second. Hence, their output power would exceed their input power by a factor of 125.
That's over unity right there.
Yeah. Laforge's equations indicate that thrust would scale in direct proportion to the capacitor dielectrics constant, in direct proportion to the capacitor's length, e.g. plate area, and according to the square of the applied voltage. Needs to be pulsed of DC voltage.
Yeah, very important.
Ecologically safe methods of energy production would become available. Electrogravitic could be usefully applied as a means for generating pollution-free electric power. One method would use permanent magnet generators, such as a solar effect generator, or the magnetic effect generator. Is that right?
You know what?
Another method might be to use phase oscillating. Was it phase
Use
conjugating? Phase conjugating parametric amplifiers that had over unity outputs. Yet another technique might be to develop rotary generators,
such
as electrostatic motors suggested by LaForge and Brown. Electrogravitic free energy machines, as well as other types of scientifically advanced energy generators, would provide society with clean energy. Declassifying the black world ether physics would substantially benefit society from an intellectual standpoint. A
definition
of the electrogravitic force might be the
ponderomotive force.
Might be the ponderomotive force developed within a high K dielectric under electrical strain. Voltages from 15 kilovolts to
75 kilovolts.
75 kilovolts to 125 kilovolts or more.
Just stop you there for a quick second, because that definition is probably the most important thing that we'll ever talk about. And I'll just read it again. A definition of the electrogravitic force might be the ponder motive force developed within a high K dielectric under electrical strain. So that electrical strain is really important too, because that's how we make things non-linear. So very, very important statement there, for sure. All right, a couple more.
Is that one? And then
electrostatic energy.
Electrostatic efficient
energy.
Sorry, electric static energy sufficient to produce low speeds, a few thousand dynes, has already been demonstrated. Generation of a region of positive electrostatic energy on one side of a plate and negative on the other side sets up the same lift or propulsion effect as the pressure and suction below and above a wing.
Very important, yeah.
Except that in the case of electrostatic application, no airflow is necessary. Yep. Electrostatic energy sufficient to produce a Mach 3 fighter is possible with megavolt energies and a K of over 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000 K. Figures of 6,000 have been obtained from some ceramic materials, and there are prospects of 30,000. Aviation Report, 20th of August, 1954.
So this is before everything went black. Remember I said that everything kind of went black 1959, 1960? Yeah.
Direct conversion.
What's that? Strontium?
Strontium,
yeah.
90 cell. Perhaps the magic of barium aluminium oxide will perform the miracle in propulsion that lithium 6 hydride has done in the fusion weapon. It is known proof positive that motion using surprisingly low K is possible. Claims now have to be solved. Claims now to have solved the
equations
by assuming that gravitation is a
manifestation
of electromagnetism. In the past 2 years since the principle of motion by means of massive K was first demonstrated on a test rig, progress has been slow. It would be the engine industry might become, it could be the industry that might become responsible for providing the electrostatic energy by its thought, a kind of flame. What's that?
And the
electro and the
and the
flame maker, right?
Yeah. Flame maker
for the condenser assembly, when it is the core
which is the core
of the main structure. Aviation Report, 12th of October 1954.
Yeah.
It is a matter of freeing enough kVA, kilovolt amps, into
the condensers
with better K figures 50,000 is a magic figure for the combat of saucer, combat for the combat saucer. It is this amount of K that can be
translated into
Mach 3 speeds.
So it's really important. The K again is very important. This high K material, the higher the number, the more useful it is, essentially, is what they're saying.
It has been suggested that linear accelerators.
Yep, you're right.
It has been suggested that linear accelerators would be the way to develop the high electric energies needed for creation of local gravitational systems. The central core of a future air vehicle might be a linear accelerator, which would create a local local weightless state by use of electrostatic processes. Mathematical analysis of other related
studies of the
conical shape region provided that Einstein was correct on gravitational waves and
particularly
that waves and particular and that the high frequency
and particular that the high frequency nullified gravitational effects.
High frequency nullified gravitational effects. For a nullification of gravity, frequencies do extend upward into the
lower
spectrum of light. Diode material for rectifiers and maybe gun diodes were furnished by
International
Rectifier,
which is a company.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Basically, electrogravitics is a technology that allows a spacecraft to artificially alter its own gravity field in such a manner that it is able to levitate itself. This is accomplished by applying a megavolt pulsed DC electropotential across the outer hull and wing of the aircraft.
Of the spacecraft, yeah.
Of the spacecraft. The permalloy strips produced a series of impedance discontinuities that formed a current dependent electromagnetic grating pattern along the
waveguide.
The grating modulated the surface condition of the waves in such a way that it was reflected. It would reflect them back as phase conjugate waves. Tesla had also discovered the secret of making coherent spark discharges characterized by negative resistance. He once commented that an arc is not working properly, which is noisy. To be efficient, it should sing, i.e. be coherent.
Yeah, and then I wrote these papers in
we have the technology to save this planet now. Ed Kabursky.
Yeah, so I wrote these papers in the early winter of 2018. And then I went back to them in 2021 of April, like the spring of 2021, the end of March. And I actually, that's when I wrote this last statement, and I also put a cover sheet on it. And because it's all Paul's work essentially, and most all of these words are all Paul's words. So I did find something today that I also want to read. So this is the end of going through my papers, but I also found something today that's really important. I was going through the Ken Shoulders patents that Chris Beskar gave me, and some of the information. And I'm just going to read to you something that Ken Shoulders had written himself. And he says an EVO, and that's exotic vacuum object or charge cluster. There's various names. He calls them EVOs. And also remember that Ken Shoulders, he was the man that actually coined the term zero point energy. So when everybody talks about zero point energy, this guy right here, Ken Shoulders, who was the business partner of Chris Beskar at Stevati Aerospace. So this says, engaging the universal drive, the universal clutch, and this is something that both Chris Beskar, David Wilcock, and Ken Shoulders talks a lot about. And this is actually the key to making everything work. The universal clutch, as it actually clutches the basic fabric of the universe by biasing the medium with a dense asymmetric charge distribution. So that is really, really important. Biasing the medium in a dense asymmetric charge distribution. I believe that's the charge clusters technology that he's talking about. Without the asymmetry, there is no traction. So in other words, without the asymmetry, it doesn't work. And we will see, and so there is no traction, and all we see is a group of electrons. So again, it doesn't work. By making the medium asymmetrical through electrical field control, we are awarded the ability to propel the EVO in any desired direction, carrying along with it whatever is attached to the EVO. So they're actually, the charge clusters are actually what propel, and anything that's attached to them gets propelled as well. And then the one last thing he said here is universal microphone configuration of this type. We can acquire the data on communications within the subspace, non-electromagnetic regions of the universe while listening to and seeing the stars in a way hard to imagine. So he's talking about new technologies in communication. And what's really important to us, being part of the Starburst Foundation, is the, looking at the stars. So he's talking about a different kind of electronic system to look at the stars with. So yeah, that's the work of Ken Shoulders. I printed out the 600 pages that are the Ken Shoulders patents and information, and I'm just going through them slowly. And I think at some point, Brendan and everyone here, I think I'd really like to do something on charge clusters, which is the main focus of all this technology. And this has all got to do with Chris Beskar and Ken Shoulders, and in fact, everything, even the Hawk, the hybrid aerospace undersea craft, would use sort of this technology, I believe. I do remember Chris Beskar saying on one of the interviews.
Can you just explain again what charge clusters is?
Well, charge clusters are okay. What they are they're spherical, but they're hollow. So they're and essentially they are there's different names for them. Exotic vacuum object is one, which Ken Shoulders refers to most often. Electrovalidium or validium, I believe, which means strong electron. That's another name that is also used, but they're charge clusters. And this is really interesting, Brendan. You know how I talk about the Turing wave, and the Turing wave itself, these little etherons form the Turing wave, right? Now, the amount of etherons that form the Turing wave are in the billions or maybe trillion. And this is really, really important because in the work of Ken Shoulders and going through all this, I find out that if you want to make charge clusters as a technology, you actually need to work with about 1 trillion of them. And then they start to function. So I do remember saying to Chris Beskar at one point that I think that etherons, charge clusters, and ball lightning are all one and the same. And going through Ken Shoulders' papers again, there's some information from the Russians that they worked with that indeed charge clusters and ball lightning are one and the same. So when I said that to Chris, he agreed, and he said he encouraged us, being the Starburst Foundation, to chase after that, because there's absolute truth to that. So if we need 1 trillion of these etherons to form the Turing wave, and we need approximately 1 trillion of these to form and use technology for charge clusters, there's something fractal going on there, right? So just sort of an interesting observation, and we'll dive into it a little bit more when we do the actual charge cluster thing here. So we'll might even do a couple different shows or a couple different weeks of charge clusters and whatnot, and go through some of the information.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah, because they are essentially what does the work, or the clutch that engages the ether. But you have to do it with asymmetry. It cannot be symmetrical, and that is the thing. So, Brandon, when you guys are doing the simulation of the Turing wave, and you guys are looking for that gradient, that blue line, that has to be there. Otherwise, it just doesn't function correctly. And I can remember you saying you had to find the proper parameters to make it stable, or,
It's
essentially.
a Model G soliton.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. So it's all
difficult to find that. It was difficult to find the parameters to make the Model G soliton stable as a part, like a particle.
Yeah, exactly. But once you find those magic parameters, we also look and see that there is indeed a gradient there. And for everyone that doesn't know what a gradient is, it's just a ski hill is a gradient. It's just a slope, essentially, right? And the other thing that's really kind of interesting is I've been going through the work of Floyd Sweet, who is his name is Sparky. That was his nickname. And he was able to condition magnets so that there was power generated from them. And what he did is he conditioned them so that the block wall is the difference between, or the point where the north and the south change. So it's usually right in the middle of the magnet at some point. Half the magnet is north, half the magnet is south, and the block wall is kind of the point where it reverses. But what he did, and he was able to make the block wall wider, and also like looser, I think is a good term. And this is research that I've dug into for years, but what I found recently, going through Sparky's personal notes, which I have, is the block wall itself wasn't just like this. He had it on an angle. So when he conditioned those magnets and he conditioned the block wall on an angle, I would suggest that that's the key to some of his technology. And the other thing is, I've researched it a lot, and I believe part of what he did is he actually he created micro channels within the barium titanate magnets by freezing them and actually sort of cracking them, and that's what allows this looser block wall to occur. So that's something that we'll dive into a little bit more. Now that we're finished the papers, does anybody have any comments or questions about anything that we talked about along the way?
No, I'm good.
I think that's okay for the time being.
Okay, well, cool. Then thank you everyone for having a look at this. This is, like I said, this is the 8th episode. The 7th one, we had Carmen jump in and tell us about some really cool stuff. So we'll that's the 7th one, but this will be the 8th one and the final one. And now we'll jump into some other cool stuff. So thank you everyone for being here.
Much, Eddie.
And thank you for reading, going through my horrible handwriting. My handwriting is a lot better now, although it's still unreadable, a lot of people say. So thanks again.
Okay.
All right, you could probably end the recording there, Amber.